What's up, Big 12 Nation? It is Tuesday night in America. That can mean only one thing. It is time for another edition of your favorite YouTube-centric Big 12 college football show. That's right, it's the one. It's the only. It is the Biggest 12 with me, your host, Clint Foster. And wherever you are, thank you so much for making us a part of your Tuesday night. As evidenced by the gold below me and the citronaut beside me, it is UCF night here on the Biggest 12. We're going to talk all things Central Florida. Don't you dare call them Golden Knights, okay? And, hey, is Scott Frost about to bring happy times back? We're going to get into all of it with some awesome guests. But before we do any of that, this isn't your first day on the internet. You know I need some things from you. I need you to subscribe to the show. There it is, running across the bottom of the screen at Big 12 VOCFB. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, ding the little bell, tell your friends, neighbors, enemies, lovers, everybody you know. Let's make this a movement. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and I need your help to do that. So come on, do me a solid, man. You love the show. You love being a part of this. Tell people about it, all right? Let's evangelize. And while you're following things and subscribing to things, subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at Clint Foster Creations. Yes, I made my first sketch in a very long time, so I've heard your pleas. It's short, so go over there and watch it. And also follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55 for all of my, musings in the moment. You'll also see that feature-length documentary, award-winning, Remember the Alamo Bowl, when I drop it for all of you folks sometime in the fall, probably October, after I have our official TCU premiere. And also, make sure you're checking out the Biggest 12 live on your favorite audio platform. Hey, maybe you're like, I can't tune in live at 6 o'clock, but I want to listen to you on my drive. How do I do that? I'll tell you how you do it. You just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, and you download it, okay? We're there for your listening pleasure. Be a part of it, okay? And connect with the voice of college football on Twitter, Instagram, and holy moly, our new website. Look at that. Ow! It's great. Look at all this stuff. All of this to keep you occupied and satisfied in this long, dreary off season. Look, we got the whole show schedule here, so you don't miss a dadgum thing. Check out VOCFB.com today. So, is that all of our podcast business? I think that's all of our podcast business. So, without further ado, let me welcome in my two guests for the evening to talk some UCF football. Ladies and gentlemen, you may know him as Wild Bill, Brian Peterson, and Dolly Drama from the Twitter sphere. And look at this beautiful official background we got now on the Biggest 12. Very exciting stuff. Gentlemen, how you doing on this Tuesday night?
Club's going up on a Tuesday. Thank you for having us, Clint.
Yes, it always is going up on a Tuesday. Yes.
Happy July 1st. Happy UCF gets a full revenue share from the Big 12 media deal finally day for those who celebrate.
Yes, and we have two of them on our show right now. That's fantastic stuff. Yes, we've made it to July. We're ever so close to football season being back. I love that for us. But before we get into talking about anything UCF football related, we love to start things out with a game here on the Biggest 12. And the theme this offseason has been, if you've been watching, it's trivia, folks. Time for some UCF trivia. Gentlemen, how confident are you in your UCF/Orlando knowledge?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think we should be pretty good. This is the brain trust you got right here.
Okay, very good. I will tell you. So the average for most guests has been about 6 out of 10 correct answers. The standard has been set by Iowa State. All right, I've been pumping them up ever since they were on the show. 10 out of 10 for Iowa State on their trivia. So that's the bar that you're trying to clear. Yeah.
All
right.
Do our best.
Well, let's see. Let's see what you got. So, question number 1, and this is one I fully trust that you know. UCF claims the 2017 national championship based on which of the 12 official NCAA selectors of the time?
Kali Matrix.
What is the Kali Matrix?
The Kali Matrix. Yes, correct. Very good. I was like, if we don't know this one, then this is going to be a long show. All right. We got our super high-tech scoreboard here to keep us up with how we're doing. 1 of 1. There we go. All right. What was UCF's first ever bowl victory?
I believe that was 2010 Liberty Bowl against Georgia.
Yes.
10-6.
You are. Yes, you got all of it right. Yes, you're 2 for 2. Hey, we can't all beat Georgia in a bowl game, but UCF managed to do it. Good on y'all for that. Okay. So in 1998, speaking of bowl games, UCF was not invited to its first bowl despite a 9-2 record. Who was the quarterback of that 1998 Knights team? Golden Knights at the time.
Who is Dante Culpepper?
Dante Culpepper.
Nailed
Yeah.
it.
We're blowing through these. Y'all doing great. Trying to chase that 10 out of 10. All right. Here's where we might. We're getting into an Orlando trivia question. Okay. What was Orlando's original name when it was a small settlement around Fort Gatlin?
Ooh.
Its original name.
I hope you can bail us out, Darling, because I got no clue.
No, I'm trying to think about it. That's actually really good. Fort Gatlin.
It became Orlando in 1857. From the 1840s through 50s, it was called this.
Is it related to
Citrus?
McCoy in some way?
Well, it's related to the main family that settled it. Settled outside the fort. Because the fort was there to fight the Seminoles, right? As you do. And then there was this family that came down to settle.
You're going to say it. We're going to know it.
I know. Don't let it be Phillips. That'd be pretty funny. Phillipstown.
It's not Phillips. No, not
What
Phillips.
is? You got a guess, Brian?
I don't have a guess. My guess would have been related to McCoy, which was McCoy Air Force Base back in.
That's
that was back in the.
Yeah. It's a good guess.
That's why Orlando International is MCO.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the best I got.
We give up?
Yeah.
The answer is Jernigan.
Oh, you know what? The Magic, the Orlando Magic Private Club, the eatery is named that. Good to know.
I was figuring when I was looking this up, I was like, there's got to be some like restaurant named Jernigan in Orlando.
Yeah.
Like that feels like very on brand, you know, what towns do. Like, hey, this is a little
especially Orlando. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another history question for you. How did the United States obtain Florida from Spain in 1819? How did we get Florida?
In 1819? Spanish-American War?
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't.
You're a little early for the Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
A little early for that.
That was like late at the century.
Do you have a guess, Brian?
I want to say we bought it, but that's probably not correct. We bartered it. My American history is usually pretty good, but I don't know how we got Florida.
All right, we give up.
Yeah.
It is the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819. This also set the border with Mexico. John Quincy Adams chartered this, and that's how we got Florida. So we're 3 of 5, so we're doing good on football questions.
All right.
Okay. So the Citronaut, which we see over here, he was only Florida Tech's mascot for 1 year, from 68 to 69. What did the students vote to replace it with in 1970?
Wasn't Vincent the Vulture?
Vincent the Vulture, yeah.
Oh, I know nothing about Vincent the Vulture. What I saw was the Knights of Pegasus as the new name of
we were also known as the Knights of Pegasus at one point, but yeah, UCF has a long tradition of mascots that we have flipped through. Vincent the Vulture was one, the Citronaut was one, Squeezer. We've had quite a few back in the day if you go through the history.
I'll give you all that one. Y'all knew more than I did on that one. We'll give you that one. Okay. So we're 6 in. All right. Question number 7. More mascot trivia. All right. UCF briefly had a female mascot companion for Nitro in the late 90s. What was her name?
It's too perfect.
Glycerin.
Nitro and glycerin.
Nitro and glycerin.
Yes. When I read that, I was like,
don't look up a photo of her now, though.
There is a small but loud contingent of fans that want to see Glycerin make her return.
Just maybe with a little bit less of a Sambo vibe. A little bit less minstrel vibe.
It's a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Who gave the Kennedy Space Center its name?
Was it Lyndon B. Johnson?
It was LBJ, yes.
Yeah.
A week after the assassination, actually. We named it the Kennedy Space Center. Boom, boom. We're 6 of 8. We're doing great. All right, you're already average, all right? So unless we just like completely fall on our face with these last two, you're right up there.
No pressure.
Yeah. All right. UCF became the first school to play in all 4 divisions of college football when it joined the FBS in 1996. At the time, it was Division 1A, but UCF became the first to play in all 4 divisions. What is the only other team to accomplish this feat?
Brian, who is that?
Think of newer additions to the FBS.
For some reason, UMass comes to mind.
Yeah,
UMass, Sam Houston comes to mind.
I almost feel like it's a Sun Belt team too. No, I thought UMass too. That was kind of percolating up there as well.
Okay.
I think their FBS is today too, like July 1st. Want to go with UMass?
It is not UMass. It's not
Is
UMass.
it Sam Houston?
It's not Sam Houston either. It is James Madison. James
Madison.
Madison.
Those guys earned it too, and they've been bad boys as of late as well.
Yes, they definitely have.
That's good to know.
Yeah. All right, we're 6 of 9. This is C's get degrees, right? We're trying to get you to a 70 here. All right,
Florida. Let's go.
All right, last Orlando trivia question. What year? You had to know a Disney question was coming. What year did Disney World open?
1971.
71 is the correct answer.
Did you get it? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Or you just guessed it?
No, I knew it.
Oh, okay.
He was just waiting to see if you could get it.
I didn't know I was gonna go. I was gonna go with 58.
Disneyland opened in 55.
Yeah, Disneyland 55, Disney World 71. There we go. Hey, look at you, a C.
Amazing. A couple of guys.
Just a couple of guys getting 7 out of 10. We love it. We love it. Okay, so let's talk some UCF football. Pressure's off now. We can stop sweating. And I want to start out with the topic that everybody wants to talk about with regard to UCF. I think you know what it is. It's the uniforms, right?
Yeah.
The new uniforms. Here we go. So added the drop shadow here. And if you are a uniform connoisseur like I am, and you've dug into this, you'll see that there are nods to basically every era of UCF football in these uniforms, which chef's kiss. I love that. Boys, what are your thoughts on the new unis?
Brian?
I think they're absolutely fantastic. So here's the thing about the new uniforms that really get me. We were kind of we knew the UCF fan base knew that these new uniforms were coming. We knew we had a deal where our time with Nike was due for a refresh and we were going to be getting some new uniforms. I don't know that I would call these anything groundbreaking. They are very similar to what UCF has worn for the past, better part of a decade now. So I would really call these more of a refresh, but they are, air quotes, new uniforms in that they are the new Nike Vapor uniforms. And we've gone through and we've made some slight tweaks to the uniforms that UCF has normally wearing. But I love them. I think they're great. I'm really happy that they brought the TV shoulder numbers back. That's something that we were missing from the 21 through 24 uniform set. I think they were trying to go with the more streamlined look with the prior set that we had, but I'm really glad to see them bring those back. Love the number font, and if you're a uniform connoisseur like Clint and I are, then you will know that UCF really puts a lot of detail into the uniforms that they build. It's not just, let's take this number set, this looks really good, let's throw this on there. There is a reason for everything that UCF does when they're assembling their uniforms, all the way down to the Pegasus on the shoulders, all that fun stuff. The Polaris star on the side of the pants there, it's all connected to UCF in one way or another. So I really like these. Now, in the past, we've also worn some alternate uniforms. So we've got night mode and light mode that we also throw out there, which are a spin on the black and white that we have. I'm assuming that UCF is saving those for later in the year and that we're going to get a drop sometime once football season kicks off, maybe some sort of night mode, which is a black uniform with gold numbers as opposed to the white. So they throw some extra flares on there. I'm assuming those are coming, but these new core uniforms that we have, there you can see the difference in the
that photo
side
right
by
there.
side.
I just love that we got rid of the Ozempic numbers, like some fat, big old numbers. Like I just love the drop shadow, and that's classic Dante Culpepper. It reminds me of like the throwback Kobe Bryant jersey with the yellow block. It's just awesome. And they did it. Our team always does a great job, just kind of bringing the past to the new. And I'm glad that it was a tweak because our football history is rather short as an institution. It's rather short, so just a little refinement here and there looks good. But yeah, I'm excited. I think they're being diligent of calling these core uniforms. There's going to be some other things to play around again. But when Scott Frost came in 2016, our uniforms were really dire. And it was a big thing if we could wear like a black jersey. George O'Leary was really staunch about kind of just keeping it simple without even having names on the back of the jerseys as well. So when they did our refresh, they kind of brought in some space elements. They had the whole Nike team that he had a relationship with Phil Knight. So this is just kind of getting us up to speed. And I'm sure, if we start winning again and start getting some eyeballs, we can kind of be quote unquote the Oregon of the East, which was kind of his moniker when he got here the first time.
Yeah, and I do love the drop shadow. It's funny. TCU used to, in the early 2000s, had drop shadow numbers on all their jerseys, and I never thought I would be nostalgic for drop shadows. Whenever we went to the normal numbers, I was like, oh, it looks so much better. But yeah, there's something spicy and magical about that drop shadow, especially the gold on the black. Looks very
the gold, it just pops. Chef's kiss.
Yes. I would like to see, I'm trying to find a good picture here, but I would like to see an alternate Dante Culpepper era UCF helmet. I love that old logo with like kind of the lance going through it.
We did that last year.
You did last year?
We did it for homecoming.
We did that last year, yeah. We did it for homecoming. Look up, who did we play for that game, Dolly?
We got bludgeoned by BYU.
That's right. It was BYU.
Oh yeah, y'all won't be wearing that again for a while.
But yeah, that was a lot of fans were clamoring for that, and they did. It was a gold helmet with the UCF Knights with the Lance logo through the side. Again, a great look.
Yes, great look. Well, you mentioned his name a little bit ago. The other thing with UCF that everybody wants to talk about right now, the return of Scott Frost. So, how excited should UCF fans be about this? Is this an issue where it's like, hey, we're nostalgic for some better times, but maybe we're not going to be able to recapture that magic? Or is this the move that UCF needs to get back on that horse? What's y'all's opinion of the Scott Frost hire?
I think there's nobody that you can hire other than Scott Frost and kind of knows the unique identity of our school and kind of plugged into it and has seen it at the highest level. And I also think it's interesting too, is just like, you're going to have Scott Frost coming back to a conference where he ran that conference for the first few years he was in it. He won the Big 12. He won national championships at Nebraska, albeit it was a lot different conference. But I think he brought back an energy that I don't think, albeit short of like Nick Saban, came out of retirement or someone else, to kind of come back and give it another go. We needed that shot in the arm. It was, last season, 4-8. I think Gus's big thing the entire time here was just he never landed on a proper quarterback. And he was just kind of frazzled up and down. And, we'd, like we were talking a little bit earlier before we started recording, we'd win a game in Fort Worth, on a comeback drive, and we're thinking we're in the driver's seat, just kind of turn that corner. And then the only other conference game we win is against Arizona later in the year. So it's just a little bit odd when you kind of see how that year kind of came, but it feels like a fever dream now. But we got Scott Frost back. I think we're excited to see if he can recapture that magic. I think it's an itch that we'll scratch and we can kind of put it to bed. If it wasn't for his work that he did with us here in those 2 years, I don't even know if we're in the Big 12 right now. Sure. So I'm glad that, we can kind of have that conversation. And I think we just need to have some patience. I think he gets our identity. I think, he has a little bit of a redemption arc he wants to do for himself, as well as with a lot of his staff that he has kind of assembled, like the Alex Grinch on the DC side. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I think we're cautiously optimistic. I think in the back of our mind, our heart is just like, oh my God, this is exciting. But in the back of our head, we're just like, we were hate watching a lot of Nebraska games and saw how those things went by the wayside. Yeah. So that could rear its ugly head once again.
This is a really unique situation where it's not unheard of for a college coach to come back to a team that he had coached in the past. Obviously, West Virginia is experiencing that right now with Rich Rob returning. And, there have been other cases like this. But I don't know that there have been other cases where the coach that left before they returned wasn't really sure they wanted to leave in the first place. And Scott Frost has been very open about the fact that when he was recruited to go coach for Nebraska when he left UCF in 2017, that he didn't necessarily want to do that. I mean, he ultimately did go. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to go return to his Nebraska roots and
that's a tough job to turn
the
down.
team. Yeah, I mean, he did what he had to do, but he's been very open with the fact that it was a very, very difficult decision. He did not necessarily want to leave UCF. And he's been very open with the fact that the one place that he did want to come back to was UCF. And if you've caught any of his interviews as of late, the question's been, why UCF? Why are you coming back? And he's like, look, I really never wanted to leave. This is the only place I would consider coming back to coach for college. He had a comfy gig coaching for the Rams and Sean McVay just recently. And I think this is a pretty unique thing for him to come back. And that passion is what UCF fans are really looking for his tenure, his second tenure here in Orlando. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Caveat to that too. I think we're the only Power 4 job in the country that would allow him just to come back without something at a G5 level, kind of like, Rich Rod did the damn thing at Jacksonville State for a couple years, and he still has it. So I think Frost still has to prove that. But again, it was very extraordinary circumstances on both tenures of his time here and also at Nebraska. So let's see what happens, man. And he was electrifying offenses. I mean, he was a guru at Oregon with the Mariotas of the world and just kind of putting things together. So the overlap is just crazy if you think about that 2018 Fiesta Bowl where you have Scott Frost getting on a plane after that wins at the Peach Bowl, when he's getting on the plane to go to Nebraska, and we're looking across Gus Malzahn at Auburn and not realize we're going to have him in 4 years. You just can't write this stuff, It's kind of just like dumb, crazy UCF luck that it's just lore.
And then getting sick of him.
Yeah, he got sick of us. I mean, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I would add on to that, if you had asked anybody when they hired Gus Malzahn to be the new head coach at UCF several years ago, everybody would have told you that was a home run hire. There's nobody better for the job. After Josh Heupel left to go to Tennessee, it felt like we upgraded. We got an SEC coach coming in. He was recruiting like crazy. He was doing very well getting, higher star players to come into the program. It just, on paper, it should have worked. And for some reason, on the field, it didn't play out. And now we're back with Scott Frost. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, y'all both mentioned Rich Rod, right? And that's the obvious comparison. You've got two teams in the same conference doing the same thing, bringing back the coach from a handful of years ago that they were really, really great with. So which of these two hires do you think we're going to look back at it in, 5, 6, 7 years and say that was the one that was going to work, and why is it Scott Frost?
I think here's the thing. I mean, Rich Rod is coming in there a little bit more hitting the ground running. I mean, he's back in it. He's kind of warmed up already, at the G5 level. I think there's a fervor in West Virginia that's unlike anywhere in our conference, anywhere in the country. I mean, those people live and breathe. There's no other professional team in the state. So, the Mountaineers are everything. I think if, he had them on the cusp of going to a national championship if they didn't lose that game to Pitt on rivalry weekend, So I think we'll look back on, I think we're okay with, if Scott Frost gets his little bowling couple years, we make a run at Arlington. And if maybe it doesn't pan out, but we had a couple looks at it, that's fine. But I think in the long term, I think if you looked at 3 to 4 years, I think you're going to see Rich Rod ahead of the race. But I think in the long term, for the resources that we have here, and they've already had their ramp up in a power conference, quote unquote. I think Scott Frost will get there a couple more times before Rich Rod does in 7 years.
I think it's definitely going to be a slow burn for Scott Frost at UCF. If you're a rational UCF fan, you don't really expect much out of this first season. It's kind of a total reset for the program when Gus left. A lot of our players transferred out, as is the norm nowadays. Scott Frost is going to have to get up to speed with NIL and the transfer portal, things that weren't really a thing when he was coaching at UCF at the time, and he only saw briefly at Nebraska. So I think that there's going to be some acclimation to getting used to those programs. And as Dolly hinted at, we are just now getting that, that full share like West Virginia has been getting of Big 12 revenue. So there's going to be a slow burn. There's going to be some buildup for UCF to play catch up in their resources and their ability and their notoriety and all these things. So I think that they will come with time, but it's certainly not going to be an immediate effect like you might see with Rich Rod.
Great answers. Great answers. Well, let's talk a little bit about last season. We mentioned it briefly how you got the great win against TCU. Y'all ruined one of my Saturdays, so congratulations there. Or
that was the last good Saturday that we had. So
our run defense really ruined my Saturdays. What it was our run defense. But what really went wrong as that season progressed, and where are areas that you feel like you can immediately improve going into year one of Scott Frost?
I think we were on vapors of culture under the Gus Malzahn era. I don't think we had a semblance of just like, we are here. This is our identity. I think when Gus came here, he said, listen, I can pop down Central Florida. I could do 2 or 3 years there, rehab myself back to an SEC West job, and I'll be back in the game. And I think, that's going to Tallahassee is the kind of closest he can get to that good old boy of, playing in the Southeast. I don't think he fully bought into here. I think he was a great man. I think he did a lot of things for us. I mean, he navigated us through NIL, transitioned us into a power conference, had us believing, just on the ledger of looking at the blue chip talent that he had on campus. There was just like, there's no way we'd see this guy on campus if it wasn't for his kind of pedigree that he has in living rooms across America. So I think, we kind of believed a little bit, and then we almost believed a little bit too much. We were at Big 12 Media Days, and it's kind of just like, this guy absolutely, KJ Jefferson, tore it up in the SEC West. There's not, it's the Big 12.
Further proof the SEC is overrated, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we could
here.
We could just kind of like roll through this, and I think he just hyped it up a little bit too much, and I think we kind of got some pieces in the mix through the portal, which you can, to kind of bolster that. And I think we're kind of cruising, and I really thought at TCU that mentally we had some mental fortitude that we could finally see, okay, when the tough, when it gets going tough, we can start getting going ourselves. And that was huge for us. I mean, TCU is kind of like a benchmark that we look at as a G5, quote unquote, that transferred to the power level, made a national championship game. And you guys were the BCS busters, so that
buttering
win,
up the host is always appreciated.
Yeah. Well, those wins though, but we thought we were really turning the corner, and then kind of believing our hype, we have a bye week, and then we're hosting Colorado. We have Fox College Game Day. I mean, we're excited for it. You got DJ Khaled and Fat Joe. We're just believing it. We're 14-point favorites at home. There's a little bit of a rain. It's getting nice and humid, and we're thinking we're going to start something. And then KJ Jefferson just rolls down, throws a pick, and then it just kind of snowballs, and we just kind of crater. And then we kind of see what the halftime hype was, or the pregame speech was for Colorado, which is a little bit more in sync of what we are, just young, vibrant, and kind of ascending. And it was a little bit weird on our end. We had boosters in the locker room, and not that really big of a good belief in rah-rah, like, let's put our name, put a stamp on the conference, and who are these guys flying all the way across the country in 2 time zones to play against us? And we just got pantsed, man. I think after that, just mentally, the revolving door of quarterbacks that Gus had was a little bit weird, and then he got a little frenetic, and then we were right there so many games, man, like Iowa State, the very last second, our run defense just gasses out. Arizona State, our special teams decides not to learn how to play football. Gives up, 14 points in like a minute and a half. Just like a comedy of errors that we just have like a group chat with me, Brian, and some other buddy UCF guys that we're just like, what the hell is going on? Have you tried this seltzer? I'm about to have 6 of them. It was insane, but and then you crescendo to 4-8, and you have a really crappy Utah as well on Black Friday. And they just muster that out. It was a comedy of errors that it's just like you literally could have not washed away that season without hiring someone like Scott Frost.
If I had to put it, I'll give it to you in short-term and long-term parameters. Short-term, last season, the 2024 season fell apart, I think, because Gus got cold feet and pulled KJ as the starter maybe a little earlier than he would have had he had the chance to go back and do it over again. Did KJ come out and wow us right away? No, he wasn't going to be the next Heisman Trophy winner. But I think that had we rolled with him instead of throwing in that rotation of quarterbacks, trying to hit that panic button at the last or earlier in the season to try and find the next quarterback. I think that if we had hung tight with KJ, maybe let him find a rhythm, get into sync with some of his receivers, we could have had an offense that maybe could have put a win or two on the board over where we ended up. Maybe we could have been bowl eligible last season. That's the short term. In the long term, I think Gus's main failure at UCF was the fact that he wanted to be a ball coach. He didn't want to be a head coach. I think that there is an important distinction in college football today, where when he was a coach at Arkansas State, or when he was a head coach there, he could kind of be a ball coach and be the head coach. When he was at Auburn, maybe he could do that a little bit there, but I think we saw that he had trouble at Auburn too in his later seasons. He wanted to run the offense. That's what his bread and butter is. And I think that in the world with NIL and the transfer portal and the house settlement and all these things that have become a weight-bearing thing on your college football program, I don't think that he wanted to deal with any of that. So I think he would have had a lot more success if he had been taken a more passive role and been more of the CEO of our program in the face to help recruiting and look big picture, and then brought in perhaps a young DC, an offensive coordinator that could have brought some life to the program instead of running the Gus playbook that we saw over and over again. So I think that was really his downfall. And I think we really saw that play out as the 2024 season came to a close.
Yeah. Hey, great analysis, boys. So let's stop thinking about the past. Let's look on forward to 2025. And you mentioned a revolving door of quarterbacks. We don't know who's going to play quarterback for UCF in 2025. Who is y'all's pick for the job and why?
I'm going to go with, I got a weird feeling, Ja'Cory Brown. Ja'Cory Brown I think he was at Miami before he came with us last year. He was,
yes.
He was the guy that almost had it for us in Ames in late October, which would have been a huge top 10 win. Those are few and far to come between in our program. Especially on the road for a conference mate, that they were the darling last year. I think Ja'Cory Brown, he has the body that Scott Frost, mobile quarterback, could do the reads, just kind of tuck in and go. He also recruited him when he was at Nebraska, which is interesting as well. I would say he's 1A and then 1B, and 1A just because he's been inside the program. And then 1B would be Taven Jackson, the transfer from Indiana. He had linked up with Mackenzie Milton, our new quarterbacks coach, while he was with Heupel at Tennessee. So he was there for a season and then went up to Bloomington. I'm excited to see that happen. The thing I'm most excited about is actually seeing quarterback competition and not one guy anointed, just trying to make it happen. I think it was really telling at Big 12 Media Days. Kenny Dillingham is picked to finish last in the conference, and he had worked under Gus Malzahn. And they asked him, how was it working with Gus? And it is a soundbite of all soundbites that is just absolutely perfect. And he goes, that guy is going to take a square peg and try to put it into a round hole. And it may not fit, but he's going to make that hole fit a square peg. And it was absolutely perfect because it's just he's just going to try to make that a thing. But it was weird, man. There was a lot of odd body language as well throughout the year. If Gus just dude, this is not working. And he legitimately has a national championship with the best quarterback that ever played college football with Cam Newton, and I think he's been chasing that ghost, since he had Cam Newton. And there's not a lot of Cam Newtons. Those are generational players, once a century as well. So I'm glad that we have an actual quarterback competition. I'm going to go 1A Ja'Cory Brown just for the familiarity of the system, that he kind of knows what he can do. And then Taven Jackson is an X factor that can kind of push for that job as well.
I'm really glad that Dolly went with Ja'Cory because I was going to say Taven Jackson. Now, I think that this is obviously a two-horse race in who's going to get the starting job to be the starting quarterback for UCF come fall. The reason I would go with Taven over Ja'Cory Brown is because the fact that Scott Frost pulled him in out of the transfer portal when he did arrive at UCF, whereas Ja'Cory Brown is a player that he inherited. Now, if you look at them both on paper, both Taven and Ja'Cory have the exact skill set that Scott Frost wants to see in a quarterback. Bigger guy, athletic, ability to throw the ball, and the ability to run the ball and be that dual threat quarterback. Not in the same way that we saw with Gus, right? He wanted to see somebody that could run the ball between the tackles as a quarterback, whereas Scott Frost likes to see a quarterback that can get outside and keep things moving, a la Mackenzie Milton 2017. So I think that's really the bread and butter that Scott Frost's offense runs off of. The reason I would say Taven Jackson is just because, like I said, he brought him in as opposed to inheriting them. I don't think that there's a wrong answer. Like I said, I think that both quarterbacks have the ability to win games for UCF. They're essentially the same in their skill set. I think that Jacurri's a little bit bigger, so maybe he could break some tackles, whereas Taven Jackson can't. But Taven Jackson, they were both highly touted freshman recruits. One was recruited to play for Miami, and Jacurri Brown. He started several games before he transferred out of the program and ended up at UCF. And Taven was recruited to go play for Tennessee. And we know they have a great history with quarterbacks, with Josh Heupel being the quarterback guru that he is, before winding up in Indiana and then ultimately transferring. So I'm really interested to see how it plays out. If I had to pick one this moment, it would be Taven, but I would not be surprised if it was Jacurri Brown as well.
Going to be an interesting battle to watch, but let's talk about the rest of that offense and the talent surrounding these two guys. Specifically, how are you going to replicate the success on the ground of RJ Harvey, right? I mean, geez, y'all friggin' ate our lunch on the ground. What's that running game going to look like? What are the receivers going to look like? Is the offensive line going to be able to compete at a high level? What are your thoughts on the rest of the offense? I
think the offensive line is a big question mark. That's kind of been the problem for UCF the last several years, as it has been. I don't think that we've got enough beef up front to compete in the Big 12. So I'm curious to see how the the offensive line continues to evolve over time. You mentioned RJ Harvey, our running back who was drafted to the Denver Broncos. Phenomenal player. Fun fact about him, he actually started out at Virginia as a quarterback before he transferred to UCF. So he had a unique skill set in that he knew how to play quarterback, had previously played quarterback before he transferred over and ultimately started playing running back. We do have Miles Montgomery, who is a transfer from Cincinnati, who kind of rode the bench behind RJ last year, ultra talented guy at running back. So I don't expect to see a huge drop off at the running back position. We've got a rotation of guys that we can throw in there. I expect Miles Montgomery to be the running back that we go to primarily. And he has shown flashes of how great he can be as well. Wide receiver, again, those are some question marks there. We had some transfers out midway through the season. So I'm curious to see what kind of development we have with our wide receivers. But I think that, it's Florida, it's Orlando. We've got plenty of talent and speed around here. So I'm not worried about us finding guys to do that. What I'm worried about is how well the offense can gel with all of the new players coming in that we've got so far.
Yeah, I think too is just like, you think of a Scott Frost offense. It's quick movements, it's shifts, it's just kind of pre-game, pre-snap reads. You're going to have a unit that gels together and knows what they're doing. But like Brian said, Miles Montgomery was exciting. He was a change-up back last year for us that could be a burner. Talent that we've had here that redshirted last year, a Stacey Gage and Tavion Swint, 4-star guys from great high schools in South Florida and Central Florida, kind of hometown heroes, guys that decided to stay. And then you got Scott Frost going in the portal, looking at like Division III schools for like a DJ Black from like Limestone. Like we don't really have a number one wide receiver. We lost Javon Baker to the Patriots 2 years ago. And then, the back was Kobe Hudson. He tore you guys up a little bit with that game-winning catch at the game. So it'll see kind of who emerges. Scott Frost gets a guy that's a burner and just gets track kids that can just catch in space and, electricity happens. So I'm excited for that to see what happens. And then we had a wide receiver last year, Kylan Fox. He was a true freshman, but he's out of Grayson High School outside of Atlanta. He played tight end in high school, but he's back to his true position. And tight ends are deadly in a Scott Frost offense. Remember, Jordan Akins was a beast in 2017. So I'm interested to see how he kind of progresses. He's been featured in a lot of media coverage from the team as well. So I think he's going to be, showcased with his talents. And then I also just think of, there's going to be guys that emerge, in this transfer portal era. You're going to have guys that come onto the scene later in the year that you're going to kind of hope to just keep them on the team, that you don't lose them to the portal. So I'm more excited about the talent evaluation with this staff that we have with Frost, and also him knowing how it looks like at the professional level on Sundays, of things that he's learned from there. I don't think we're getting the same Scott Frost. He's going to have a different vision. And I think he even said it too. He's like, I don't know if I'm coming in here, this is going to be the UCF fast that I ran 8 or 9 years ago. We're going to have to kind of adjust to what the league is happening. So I'm excited in that respect.
All right, and now the defense as well. A lot of interesting pieces, I think, on that defense. Sincere Edwards, specifically at edge, and you got Isaiah Reed and Kelly Lawson at linebacker, Philip Dunham. What's this defense going to look like? Is this defense going to be able to stop the run? If the offense can run the ball, is the defense going to be able to stop the run?
Yeah, I think Kenny Martin is the only position coach that stayed on from last year for the D tackles. I'm excited that he got to keep some guys that were bread and butter, that were really good for us. We had a John Walker that could have gone to anywhere in the country, decided to stick with the hometown team. He brought his high school friend with him, and Derek LeBlanc, that was a 4-star transfer back from Oklahoma. I think that could be our sneakiest, defensive line will be our sneakiest position group this year that can kind of keep us in some games, 1.5 games that, we shouldn't be in for the long haul. But beyond that, I people were telling me to beware of Alex Grinch. I never really saw a lot of his defenses, but man, the message boards and just Twitter were just like, oh, Grinch. And it's the same meme with the Grinch on from Dr. Seuss, like smiling. So I'm in wait and see mode on that end.
Yeah, I think the big question is what Alex Grinch is going to bring to this defense. We don't really know what to expect. As Dolly, pointed out, a lot of folks are out on Alex Grinch. We were kind of scratching our heads at the hire when it was made. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We're going to see how the defense evolves, but we're really not sure what to expect when it comes to the type of defense that he's going to roll out there. UCF fans have a love-hate relationship with our defensive coordinators. Over the last several years, we've had a lot of defensive coordinators that have come through the program, and there haven't been a ton that have left UCF, and the fan base is clamoring for them to come back. So it's a tough job to fill at UCF. I'm curious to see what he's going to do, but jury's still out. We don't know what the defense is going to look like yet. We're all about offense anyway here.
Yeah, you're like, what's the defense?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a look at the schedule here, but first, a quick word from Mark.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
All right, here we are, schedule time, and I think this is a really intriguing schedule for UCF. That's the word I'm going to use, is intriguing. You got the very tough Big 12 opener in Manhattan, but otherwise, a lot of winnable games on this schedule, right? It's a nice little soft launch into the Scott Frost era 2.0. Obviously, it's never fun to go to Lubbock. Provo's a tough place to play, but you got Oklahoma State at home. Who knows if they're going to be any good anyway. And you got West Virginia at home, Cincinnati. Y'all got Cincinnati, right? So what are your thoughts overall as you look at the schedule?
I think if we can get through gelling those first 3 games, Jacksonville State, tune-up games, North Carolina A&T, if you want to go bowling, those got to be automatic wins, right? If we can get some September juice, this is like old UCF schedules back in the time where you used to play at NC State back in 2007, or a Boston College would be like the Power 5 team that was on your schedule. If we can take a North Carolina, a game that was pushed away after Hurricanes canceled the first meeting that we're supposed to have, if we can get Bill Belichick and his girlfriend Jordan just nervous in the bounce house, and kind of get that North Carolina game, I mean, then things just start opening up, and like the schedule starts getting weird. It's just like, Scott Frost was a grad assistant at Kansas State, knows the lay of the land. They get kind of spooked. He wrecked them when he was at Nebraska as a quarterback. If you start getting into that momentum, you get to Kansas State, you can pull one out there, and then you're just kind of running back our inaugural season in the Big 12 with a Kansas, West Virginia, a Baylor as well. I think the road games are hard, but I think you're going to kind of know after Kansas State what we are in that kind of first month. So if you start having a little bit of belief, things start opening up. But I think you're absolutely right. I think a Cincinnati at Cincinnati should be winnable, but they have a budding quarterback that's only a sophomore. Yeah. I think it's just kind of what do we have in our tank. I would just like to see us kind of regain some of our home field advantage because there was a lot of times where at BYU last year it was just a sea of blue, and we're out of the game by the third quarter. Or West Virginia, 2 years ago, you had Shaq doing the pregame with the Big 12 party on campus, yelling "West Virginia dies today," and it's hilarious because we ended up dying by 3 touchdowns, mere hours later, and you got Country Roads bellowing from the belly of the bounce house, So it's just kind of like I kind of want to get some of that juice back that we had back in the day. That it was a fearsome place to play. It's a lot rowdier than you would think. It makes a lot more noise. It's only 45,000. They're juicing up the stadium. The new name now is a Chrysler Bounce House. They got rid of the FPC Mortgage name. I just want some of the juice back, and I want to see some paces that we're kind of getting our mojo back, especially at home. When we're traveling the country from Central Florida, I mean, we're on flights for 3 or 4 hours just to get to these towns, But I'd like to see what we do through the first 3 games. If we get 3-0 and we only got to pick 3 more spots to kind of get a W, I like our chances of going bowling this year. I really do.
Before I get into my analysis on the schedule for 25, Dolly makes a good point. For those that are just getting used to UCF being in the Big 12, playing at the Bounce House was something that other teams used to dread. And ever since we joined the Big 12, and this is to be expected, that the home atmosphere or the ability for UCF to be unstoppable at home in the Bounce House is not what it was when we were in the American and Conference USA. So I think that step up in competition has kind of affected us mentally in a little bit because we're not seeing the type of success that we're used to seeing at the Bounce House. And obviously, like I said, that's going to come with the fact that we're playing teams of higher caliber. But I would like to see, as Dally said, us bring back some of the attitude that we had when we play at home. We have seen sparks of that when we beat Oklahoma State when they came into town 2 years ago. The space game is still a pretty big game during the season, but I do think that we've lost a little bit of that flair at home. Okay, on to the schedule. So I've got my eyes on a couple games. Obviously, the first game is going to be a very curious game we're all going to have our eyes on to see what kind of offense and defense UCF puts out on the field against Jacksonville State. It's kind of a give-me game, so take that with a grain of salt. Looking at North Carolina when they come into town, the Fighting Bill Belichick's. Curious to see what kind of teams they're going to field this year with all of the drama going on at North Carolina at Chapel Hill with all of that, if you're following up with it.
Hopefully we will have softened them up a little
hopefully,
bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
hopefully the wheels are already coming off at that point. But still, that'll be a big game for us to see what kind of team. That'll be the first real competition that we're facing all year long. So that'll be a good one. Going on the road at Cincinnati is always a good time. Cincinnati's kind of become a semi-rival of ours as we were in the American and jumped over here together. So there's no love lost between UCF and Cincinnati fans. I've got my eyes on that West Virginia game. Last time we played West Virginia in Orlando, they took over our stadium. It was supposed to be an easy game for us, and the West Virginia fans I spoke to before the game were like, "Oh no, you're going to kill us. Don't worry about it. This is going to be over by halftime." Well, it was over by halftime. It was over the other way. And let me tell you, those West Virginia fans, they showed up and they were loud, and they outdid UCF at our home stadium. So the fact that they're coming back to town again is not something I'm thrilled about. So I've got that game circled.
They're just glad to have a travelable game. Let's just
I mean, Orlando is the place you want to come to if you're in the Big 12 and you're going to make a trip out of it. Let's go to Orlando. So I don't blame them for that. And then finally, I'm kind of looking at that BYU game with all the question marks as to what's going on with BYU and their quarterback right now in the program. Really curious to see how that affects their season. Obviously, this is, the last game of the regular season, so things will have played out by then, but really curious to see how that game winds up. I know a lot of Knight fans are really excited about going out to Provo and being in that atmosphere, which is just one of the best in college football. So those are the games that I'm looking forward to this year.
Okay, so are we both feeling bowl game? Are you feeling 6 wins, Brian?
Gun to my head, I'm going to say no. I don't think we make a bowl this year.
I believe.
You can. You definitely can.
Possible. It's possible.
I believe.
I feel like 5 is very attainable.
Yeah.
And
I just don't want.
I
don't want anything. No, I don't. We can't go backwards. We can't do anything less than 4-8 this year. You know what I mean? If we go less than 4, I mean, you're splitting those first 2 games, and then we're getting somewhere dire. But
I'll give you my reasoning. I think that there's so much parity in the Big 12, and if you follow the Big 12, you've heard that over and over again. You understand that phrase. I don't know that you can realistically look at any game on the schedule and say that's a win. Sure. Okay, sure. The first couple games that we play, those are, as a friend calls them, fake games. But the rest of the schedule, once we get into Big 12 play, all bets are off. I mean, look at Arizona State last year, picked last in the conference, and they go to the quarterfinal in the CFP. So I don't know that you can look.
Robbed.
Yeah,
they were.
And even at Kansas, even we went to Kansas State the first time, we were with our backup quarterback in Manhattan, and it was kind of a game to begin. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of want to see us just full strength. You're not going to have the reps, obviously, with everybody on the same team, but the teams change year to year either way. I just want to have some moxie back. I want some in-game adjustments. I want a guy that just let's get our edge back little by little. Because, I don't need us, a few years down the road, I'd love to be in the conference hunt when we're beginning the month of November. But you know what? I'd also like to maybe, if we're not going to a bowl game, playing spoiler in the month of November to a team. Last year was just so dire. We were just playing really crappy teams to kind of close out the year, and it's just like, who's crappier, and we, playing Utah, that's like 4-7 as well. So it'll be interesting to see what we do. But I'm excited. You kind of. You're out of the woods already with what we had the last 4 years. You kind of have a blurry vision of what we were back in the day, but I didn't even think we knew what we were going to be, at the beginning of that journey. So I'm excited to see what's kind of on the other side for us.
Love it. Hey, well, I got 2 more questions for y'all, and then we'll close this thing down. They're not UCF related, but they're questions I've started asking everybody. So first of all, we've all seen Tech with the deep pockets, right? This $50 million roster, right? This is one way of approaching NIL. You are looking for all of the biggest names in the portal. You're giving them whatever you want. You're trying to make a super team. And on the flip side of the coin, so you got like Tech doing that. BYU's been doing that, just spending. On the flip side of the coin, you got teams like TCU, who are more focused on retaining talent, right? Paying the guys that you already have and trying to develop those guys, trying to recapture, the way college football used to be with the development cycle. Which of these do you feel like history is going to show, or this year is going to show, because with the House settlement now, we're not going to be able to just spend. Which do you feel like was the correct way to approach the NIL era in its early stages?
I don't know that you're going to be able to look at this and compare apples to apples when it comes to the world of college football. Hopefully, okay, look, I'll give you this. Scott Frost has said he's going to take the approach of, we're not going to go spend our NIL dollars to get transfers to come into our program. We're going to save that NIL money for the players that we developed to keep them here.
Sure.
So if I have one that I have to choose, I hope that is the route being, that ends up being more successful, because that is, by all accounts, what it sounds like Scott Frost and his staff are going to attempt to do. I don't know that's necessarily going to work for the bigger programs, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, just because they're going to have the ability to go pick whatever player they want out of the portal anyway. So I think that when it comes to the big boys in college football, those legacy programs are going to be able to do that and have the success that we've seen them have for the last, 2 decades, going all the way back to the BCS and before then. I think the programs like the TCUs, the UCFs, and the underdog power programs are going to have to take their money, and they're going to have to invest in their players to keep them in the program once they're there.
I think people were freaking out about NIL, but I think there's a benefit to us where an Alabama or Notre Dame would stockpile the 4 and 5 stars, where these kids are just like, dude, I can play right now. I'm going to go to a UCF or a TCU, or maybe, and it's my 2 or 3 year stop till I bop around for a grad degree. It's not where I started. I think wherever you go, whatever program you have, it's talent evaluation and culture is paramount, right? So you just can't get whoever you get and just expect them. I just bought you and that's it. You're in the mix or whatever. No, you need to come with an attitude that's coachable, approachable, and something that we can kind of help mold and something you're aspiring for something bigger than yourself. So these kids are just coming for these paydays. God bless them. I mean, 19 years old, making all that crazy money. You got a Lee Hunter that left us. We thought he was coming back, and he gets a buzz on West Texas. They're like 1 million plus. I'd be out of here.
Yeah.
I'd be in my Raider Red for 1.5 million. If I was in college at that time. So it's like I don't knock these kids at all for juicing the system. They put their bodies on the line for entertainment, all that. But I think culture will always win. And in the sense of a Texas Tech, they got an insulated culture. Lubbock is its own brand. I think people, when they head out there, they realize, wow, this is a really cool town. This is a college town. One of the most purest things that I think is kind of cool of, you have like a Fort Worth where it's tucked away outside of Dallas, that there's a culture for a few blocks of a town that this is our kind of thing. So I think that's important. But I think in the long run, you're going to have those top tier guys like a Saban or a Dabo. They're going to get their guys anyway, but they know how to evaluate talent, and they have a culture that, we don't care because we have another 4 or 5 star right behind you that wants to come here. So I think it's more so of culture, but I think it'll be an interesting litmus test. I'm glad Texas Tech is putting their cojones on the table and saying, listen, we can go band for band with anybody in the country. We have oil money, and I think it's a great thing for the Big 12. And it's beyond having a lightning rod like a Coach Prime at Colorado that could be transient. He's gone. That kind of brand leaves. Texas Tech, they believe that. I mean, the big booster from Eagle Holdings, he played for Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think you're going to have some dynamic juice, even if we're not good that year. Our guys going against Lee Hunter is going to be exciting to watch, in early November. So there's going to be juice to it. I'm glad that there's people spending in our conference, though, that it's not just, outside of the quote unquote power two. And they're already saturated with their markets as well of what they're spending. So I think in the long haul, it's going to be evaluating your talent, but you got to get the right guys in there. And some people will have a bigger carrot than others to kind of get people into their totem pole. But at the end of the day, if you can't kind of cultivate your culture and put it together on Saturdays, doesn't matter how great you look on the ledger sheet.
Yeah, Texas Tech is really going to be an interesting one for the Big 12 to follow and see how that really plays out for them. Luckily for us, UCF has always been the program that has prided itself on doing more with less. So hopefully the return of Scott Frost kind of brings that juice back to the program.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've come to it now. Who are your picks for Arlington in 2025?
Don't know. I'm going to go with.
I mean, it truly could be like any of like 13 teams.
I think.
Let me think about this for a minute.
I think there's going to be some juice. People are talking about Utah having a resurgence. Cam Rising was a special guy, and he had those years with them. He was a little bit injured last year. They had an ascend with him that that was a special guy. You need a quarterback, and
their New Mexico transfer, that New Mexico.
Oh, that is true. That's true. Yeah, and I mean, and then again, that's a guy that grabs it in a portal, and they have a culture at Utah. They can make it work and kind of mold it. I would like to see. I like Rocco Beckman. I think Iowa State gets back there. If they can get some juice, and beat Kansas State on another continent, would be interesting. They kick off in Ireland for Farmageddon. I would say Iowa State. I was going to say BYU, but with this quarterback situation, that's out by the wayside. I would say Iowa State. I think I got I could see Iowa State beating Kansas State in Ireland, and then they meet again in Arlington.
We've had that one before. We've heard that one before.
That's what I
It
think.
could happen. It could happen.
Give me Baylor and Arizona State in Arlington. I think that Kenny Dillingham runs it back. I think he has another great year this year, coming out of nowhere last year. And I think Dave Aranda is he's kind of an odd coach, right? Like, it feels like one year he's on the hot seat, and then the next year he's doing really well. And then he's back on the hot seat, and then he's doing really well. So I think he's due for Baylor to have a good season. Give me Baylor and Arizona State.
Call it a homer pick, but I keep saying it. TCU Baylor and the hatred in that building will feed families. It'll be a beautiful thing.
It could be TCU. I'm disappointed TCU's not coming to Orlando. We're not getting that return trip this year.
Yeah, I know. Well, we will, sure enough. I'm sure we will, sure enough, soon enough. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out for an hour. We're right at an hour. Look at that. Beautiful. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Brian were both on contributors to the Sons of UCF, and I'm starting a column now for Knights 24/7. And follow me on social at Dolly_drama.
All the places.
He's all over, man. Dolly's a great follow. Much better follow than I am. You can find me on Twitter at Brian W. Peterson. I'm Brian Wild Bill, contributor for Sons of UCF. So you'll see me throw a column up on the Sons of UCF website every so often, and general shenanigans all Twitter. Lots of fun we have.
Love it. And y'all know where to find me, right here at Big 12 BOCFB. Subscribe to the show. I'm hoping to get some more Knight subscribers this week. Come on, make yourselves known. Follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55 and my personal YouTube channel at Clint Foster Creations. And make sure that you are checking out the website, following Voice of College Football on social media. It's very easy to find, VOCFB, and checking us out on wherever you get your podcasts. So next week, we will be talking Big 12 Media Days. In the meantime, have a happy 4th of July. I love you. I hope your team wins. And go Big 12. See you next time.